the NWF Champion Ace.
Pitts is called to match. For some strange reason, he's giving the victory to Kid Kelsey.
Mr. X declared the new champion.
We have a new champion, Mr. X.
He's won the title back. Get it back. Bring the brown. Don't you cross me, the new champion.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is I, your favorite host with the most, Dixie Dave.
With the most what?
With the most everything.
Dave's a little flustered because he got in here at the last minute, and so welcome in, everybody. We're just getting rolling here with another NWF Forward. NWF Rewind. I'm on the wrong show, I guess, huh? And yeah, so it's of course you've seen that that promo we just watched there, and that's all, of course, what's coming up here. 40th anniversary championship match, very exciting, and it's going to be an interesting, not this next Forward, I think the one after. We're going to have Andrew USA joining us on Forward to talk with Ben and Ricky. So that'll be a good show. All the people who held the belt.
Yep, -1.
-1, which I've sent the invite to that person as well. I just haven't heard, so, of the other one that held the belt. So, but anyway, yeah, so it'll be a
well,
fun...
you know my take on that.
Yeah, I do know your take. Yeah, it's
We discussed this already, and I've given you my 2 cents on it. You know.
Yeah. We don't have our normal
public on it, but whatever.
We don't have our normal Sky Sports crew in today, Dave. They might be busy doing playoffs again. So I noticed, and nor do we have some of our other regulars. So hopefully they'll come in here. So we'll see. But as you know, most people will watch this in replay. That's where most of our views come from. I'd say about 99%. So.
Yep.
But, and I've always said maybe we should just tape the show. But Dave said, well, then that takes all the fun away from it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it doesn't give us our interaction with our people.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's half the fun, is the interaction with the crowd.
Right. And Ricky's, it's funny. On Forward, we talked about that way back when, and Ricky said the same thing. So, yeah. It makes it more fun.
I live a busy life, and I don't get a whole lot of chance to catch Forward, so.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from the heart.
Yep. Although I know that Ben and Ricky are really excited though. They're excited to see, to meet Ace and Kid Kelsey.
Yeah.
Because for them, it's kind of cool to see that, So so it'll be kind of cool to see, what they think, and what Kelsey. I know Kelsey's. I can tell you right now, just like Dixie Dave, Kelsey's going to play the heel card. He's going to come in and say, "What are these two schmucks doing wrestling for this title when no one ever beat me for the belt?" That's what Kelsey's going to say.
Well, it's real simple. Matt, if you're watching this, it's real simple. You failed to appear for a defense. You were stripped. Enough said.
Commissioner Dixie has just spoken on the matter.
Well, I know my NWF history, and
it is true. It is true. He speaks the truth. Technically,
he failed to. In technical terms, he failed to appear for title defense at the Dri-Dock. The title was awarded to an opponent. That opponent lost the title.
Yeah. And also, Dave, we had a very interesting show with Keaton last Sunday, Wrestling Revolution Keaton, our show we do on Sundays. And it was kayfabe with Keaton, and the topic was backyard wrestling. And we had a real interesting conversation there. Wayne McCarty joined us for that one.
Yep, if you're in the house, Wayne, hello.
Yep, and it was a very, very, very interesting discussion. We have everybody has an opinion on backyard, Dave, and one thing Wayne enlightened me on a little bit more than I tend to think about, and that is that not all backyard leagues were the 1990s wild and crazy shit.
Yeah.
And that we seen on the DVDs. And I always heard the term backyard wrestling, my mind goes to that stuff.
Right.
And Wayne was, very, kind of eye-opening in that he was pointing out that not every backyard fed was like that. And
right.
Unfortunately, they didn't get the attention that all the other crazy ones did.
Right.
And indie feds, and Wayne pointed this out too, he goes, indie feds will use backyarders because they're free. They'll be like, yeah, you can come on, we'll give you some exposure and give you some experience, but, you weren't trained, you're working for nothing.
Right.
Yeah, there's a bit of that going on with certain promotions. And then, of course, there's the indie feds that won't even consider that.
Right.
So you get a little bit of everything. You know what bugs me, though, Dave? I brought it up on the Backyard Show, and that is that I see sometimes, and I don't know, you probably see it too, on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see these people trying to start up a promotion and a school and everything, and they got a ring, and it's maybe in their home, their property that they have in some big pole barn or something. They're trying to get something going, and so they're offering a school, and they're trying to just do something to get something started. And you'll get the purists that'll come in and say, "Who's your head trainer? Who's involved with this? Oh, you're nobody. You don't have any experience in this. This is a waste of time. You're a disgrace to the business," and blah 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 blah. And I don't like that because they're stomping it out before they even have a chance to let them get started with what they're trying to do.
Before they get a chance to prove their worth. I mean, you look at it. Minnesota's always been a hotbed for pro wrestling.
But give them a chance.
And I had a friend who wanted to get into pro wrestling. He couldn't find a school, and through connections of ours, I connected him with 3 different trainers, 2 of which were here in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But he chose an out-of-state option, and but I mean, there's a couple people here that are training that, granted, they weren't big names in the world of pro wrestling, but they were decent names locally.
Yeah.
That are out there training, and hey, they were trained by somebody good, so why not pass along the knowledge?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and I'm just saying though, it kind of bugs me when you see that happening. You know how the purists, as I like to say, they whoop, sorry, phone went off for some reason. But yeah, it just kind of belittles the whole thing, really. And
Right. I mean, okay, for instance, one of the people I was talking about that's got a local school here, a name you might remember, Tony DiNucci.
yeah, I remember
You
Tony.
know,
In fact, I got some students at HTC that just got contracted by him to do some video work.
yeah,
Yeah,
'cause he's running a promotion here, and he's also doing a training camp.
yeah,
You know,
yep,
he he had some decent training, so why not let him pass his knowledge along?
yeah.
Or am I wrong for my theory?
No, I mean everybody should have the opportunity to try to get something going. This notion. I want to just say this notion of unless trained with a capital T by a professional with a capital P, and that you're really not in the business. Look, who's to say that they own the business and that they're the only ones that can train in the business?
And you know,
It's like,
to me, what I seem to notice is a lot of these elitists or purists, as you put them,
mhm,
are people who have never been a part of the business. They're
right,
marks. They're
big time
marks.
fans, exactly.
They're marks who think that they know what the ins and the outs are. And sorry to put it this way, I know we try to keep it family friendly, but they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground when it
Right.
comes to the business.
I'll give you an example. One of these purists came in and commented on a recent short I did, where I was asking Ricky, "So, do you think you can hold your own against somebody like Drake?" Now, you know what I mean by that when I say that, Dave.
Yeah.
Anybody that's been in the business knows what I mean when I say that. And a smart wrestling fan should know what I mean by they say that. And so this purist, I'm just going to refer to him as that, goes on to say in his question/comment, "What kind of question is that? Are you saying that somebody who knows it's a script going against somebody, an actor, that is," he called him an actor, "in a script, is going against another actor, and you're asking if he can hold his own?" He's like questioning the whole thing, right? And it's like,
You know,
an actor is how I referred to it as. I thought, yeah, okay, we know who we're talking to here, right?
yeah, I mean, I recently watched a little bit of Flair's 30 for 30 that was done.
Yeah, very good. I've
And,
seen the whole thing, so I know exactly what you've seen.
you know, I've only watched a little bit of it where he's talked about how he sacrificed and all that. And he went on the Sally Jesse Raphael show. And
Yeah,
somebody questioned him about it being fake.
yeah,
And his response was, no, wrestling is not fake. It is choreographed. We are
yep,
like stuntmen.
right,
Very true. Yes, wrestling is scripted. It is choreographed. It is predetermined.
yep,
The physical toll it takes on a body, you know it. I know it.
for sure.
I mean, every time we get a cold snap, I know about it.
Right. My back tells me when the weather changes, and that's only because of 7 years of abusing my body. And and it is. When you're in this wrestling business, you're abusing your body. It's what it comes down to. And we know that. And we never complain about that. Dave doesn't complain about that, nor do I, because we knew what we were doing back in the day, and we knew that we could pay a price someday for it. It's okay. It's fine. It's what it is. So,
Yes, we may talk to each other about it, but it's not that we're complaining about it to each other. It's We know what's going on. We know what our aches and pains are from, and we know we did it to ourselves.
Right. And we enjoyed every minute of it. And if we could go back and do it again,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
damn right.
Oh,
Without question.
I mean, do I still get the urge to get in the ring? What wrestler doesn't?
Right.
What person who's been in the ring does not feel that pull towards the ring?
For example, in a couple weeks here, 3 weeks, whenever it is, when I do the forward show, when Kid Kelsey and Ace come on with me again to go talk to Ricky and Ben about the title match coming up, the old champs versus the future champs. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of. I'm sure it's going to go through all three of our heads, me, Ace, and Kelsey. Like, damn it, if we could go back in time, But our time has passed. Dave's time has passed. We know this, and this is the future now. So for these two young kids, boy, it's going to be one hell of a match coming up.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm really looking forward to June 1st. It's the NWF belt is reborn with the new era of wrestling, and what a hell of a good match that'll be. So,
I was even talking to a guy who used to buy belts from about it.
Yeah.
It wasn't somebody we've had on the show. It's somebody else, but
Wasn't
he
Carmine?
had mentioned, it wasn't Carmine, and it wasn't Hammer. So, but yeah, I was talking to him, and he goes, "You know about the NWF?" And I go, "Yeah, I was a part of the NWF." I said, "I do a bi-weekly podcast."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Damn." He's like, "I'd love to get a hold of some of the DVDs, but they're hard to find. Most of the time you find them, they're bootlegs."
Right. I don't go
said,
after
"Hey."
the bootleggers.
Well, maybe you should.
I know. It's just, there's just people, they're probably making little to nothing on what they do with them. And it's like, whatever, it is what it is. Well, I tell you what, Dave, we can keep chatting, but I suppose we should get our show going here.
Oh, yeah.
We're going back to the Dri-Dock in Spring Lake Park, Minnesota. My match on here is complete garbage because me and Dr. Dread go against the Russian Scorpions. Need I say more? So, yeah, it wasn't a fun night. Sorry, no offense to you, Ernie, if you ever catch this in rerun. You weren't so bad, but your partner shouldn't have been in the business at all, and he didn't give 1 inch. And quite frankly, neither one of you did. You tried to be too invincible, and it just made the match lacklusting. It's not entertaining when it's like that.
Yeah.
So, and I hated every minute of it. But we're gonna watch it. So let's get the show going here, Dave. And we'll keep chatting.
Alrighty.
Now here we go.
And we're off and running. Another NWF show.
Yep.
But, I did tell the guy, I said, if you ever get the money together and you want some of the DVDs, let me know. He goes, "How do you have the hookup for the DVDs?" And I said, the owner of the company and I are friends, and I've got a bunch of the discs right here in my home.
Yeah. Speaking of the other NWF champ.
Yep.
Of course, he wasn't the champ as Pretty Boy. He was under the hood with Mr. X, but same person. WrestleVision 88. We're in January of 1988 on this taping.
Yep. Sorry, every time I see the Russian Scorpion,
I know. It was just. If I could only go back in time, I would have a nice sit down with Ernie and just give him some real good constructive advice, which Ernie was good at listening to. Ernie would have listened. There's Jeff Dinsmore.
NWF Hall of Famer.
Yep, two-time Hall of Famer in 2024. Ricky Vaughn is, of course, the Irish Terror.
Yep, a.k.a. Jamie.
Jamie McParlin.
Okay, we're in CG.
You can hear me. I didn't know Mike was live. That was me fading black. Looks like I'll be at the mic commentating. Hitman Hernandez. Like Jeff always said, the Bandit shouldn't have been in the business here. He didn't belong. You know, I don't know much about the Bandit. I don't remember him much. But Hernandez, you know, Hitman Hernandez was another kind of a real flamboyant guy, but he was good though. I thought his character was good. It's just he didn't really give a whole lot in the ring. He liked to have a lot of offense.
Yeah.
But he wasn't as nobody was as bad as the Russian Bear. Let's get that clear. But Hitman Hernandez, this colorful guy in the colorful tights and stuff, in here you'll see him. And then Chris Logan, who was a young kid. I think he might have been 16 or 17. And I spent a lot of time with Chris Logan, getting him trained into this because Jeff put him with me. Jeff would put all the new guys with me in these days to kind of just brighten them up enough to get them on camera. You know, a lot of our training was the matches. You know that, Dave.
Yeah.
So these matches were part of your training, but we didn't have formal training. But I did spend a lot of time with Chris Logan. He's the blonde-haired kid. And kind of just... And like I said, when I would spend time with these guys, it would mainly be, you know, getting them to learn how to fall properly so they're not, you know, going to make it look good. Taking basic moves like body slams and suplexes and that type of thing. Those are the kind of things. Clotheslines, all those common moves back in the day. Anybody has any comments or questions, please feel free to comment. We'll bring them right in here and we'll answer any questions you have or any comments. Please feel free to chat if you want.
We don't shy away from any questions.
Yep, we take your comments in, no problem. And whether you agree or disagree with this, or you like or don't like what you're seeing, we take everything in, guys. We don't sugarcoat nothing here. It's one thing on NWF Rewind, we tell it like it is, and sometimes we weren't always the shit, right, Dave?
Yeah.
In these matches. But yeah, it's Crusher Crossen commentating right now. Actually, I can hear myself talking along with Jeff Dinsmore. There's Chris Logan coming in the ring. Yeah, this Rick Pitts used to be our referee, you know, for many years, you know, a couple years here, and now he's wrestling now. That's kind of it's funny to see him. He still refs, but he's wrestling now as well. So yeah, this is Hitman Hernandez along with Hitman Hernandez. Like I said, Hitman was good. He just didn't. Nice clothesline. He just didn't give a lot as far as giving you an opportunity to showcase some of your moves.
Right.
You know.
And that's,
I wish he would.
You know, part of the thing, you know, people may laugh because of my win-loss record, but that's part of the business. You've got to make people look good.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. You know, and you know, tell you something. If you sit there and try to be all offensive when you get into this, and you try to just be a spot monkey and do all your stuff, you're going to get the reputation with the boys pretty quick.
Yep.
And you know, you're not going to be well. People aren't really going to be wanting matches with you. Look, my thing was, I love selling. But if you're not going to give me anything, you're going to piss me off.
And you're not going to get anything.
Right. So it's like, I'm not going to let the match go to shit, but man, I mean, you gotta be give and take. In today's day and age, I think a lot of the wrestlers are a lot more willing to give and take, you know?
Right. You know, I mean, you know, it's like when I was in the ring, I wasn't worried about getting my spots in. It was like, okay, let's have a good match.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same way Jamie was. Let's have a good match.
Yep.
Look at Rick Pitts' back. Beat red. Goes to show you that these guys ain't fooling around in that ring.
We have the return of, well, they're now called
Double Trouble. Rack and Roll Express. Chris Barger, Mike Bauer.
Friends of mine, I'm glad to see him back in the area.
We really gotta go in here.
See him, man, that he just wasn't. This is what Jeff means by he shouldn't have been in this.
The Bandit's a newcomer
Yeah.
himself. He's been around a while, but he's still new. And he's facing up pretty good Rick Pitts, I could say that.
You know, Rick's been around it enough as a referee, so he.
Run on in with each other at one of the studio
Well, we got color bars that just came in. This is all, like I said, I restore it the way it is, and I can't correct stuff like that. That was in the van. Color bars.
This could be all over. Look out. The elbow smash. Where do you get those shorts?
I don't know.
You know, it's funny, this Dri-Dock crowd, Dave, there was always this one guy, you can always hear him every now and then, has this loud voice. You can hear him out there. He was there for every taping. He was the heckler. He's the one who was always saying, getting people going or whatever.
Another elbow smash.
Comes down with the side of the elbow.
Part of the arm, actually.
Yeah.
One of these
you
days
know,
I'll have to ask
every
Jeff
crowd
who that was. What's that?
Every crowd needs that.
Yeah.
We got our we got our camera situated.
You know, I hate to say it, but
Like I said,
you know, shows sometimes need plant attendees to try and help the crowd decide who they should follow.
Yeah,
You know, how to react.
Rick ain't gonna let her go no more.
exactly.
He ain't gonna let her go no more. Now they're going
He's gonna go from turnbuckle to look out. Look out. Whoa. He's gonna come right over here. Oh yeah.
Gave him a
Look out.
forearm at it.
Oh, nice form by Rick Pitts.
See, like, Hitman will take, like, he's you know, he's living a little bit here. He's not, like, horrible, but I'm just saying he could have been better as far as give and take.
Right.
Terrific Tim and Jimmy Boyd. I'm looking
Plus, he's getting up too quick.
And I'll be in the corner, of course. And I'm gonna make sure everything. I'm signing against the Russians.
You know, when Luscious Larry came back,
Russian Bear is
he started doing working an angle with Hitman Hernandez. Yeah,
I got a surprise.
you got a surprise.
and
Yeah.
You better tell me. Look out.
Dread,
Wilder.
that was kind of
Could be over.
Dr.
the
Dread
feud
and I
they were
were
trying
talking on the telephone, and I got a surprise for you.
No clues or
to
nothing.
kind of come up at an angle was Hernandez and Luscious Larry. You know,
Dr. TV set.
Larry was, you know, much better shape than Hitman, but they had similar. It would have been a good kind of rivalry.
Yeah.
See, like, Hitman's not bad. It wasn't a bad dropkick he just did.
Hitman has been in Japan. He's been touring.
And Chris Logan.
He's really coming up in professional wrestling.
Yeah, so you know, last time out he had his title shot against Grizzly Stevens.
The camera's glitching a little bit. They're having trouble in the van with the colors. That's why the colors keep kind of going in and out on this one here and there. Just because they were trying to. I remember they're trying to. The mobile van would always be finicky like that when they first got it set up and going for these tapings, for these cable TV tapings. They would always have these issues,
February 16th.
you know, with
Yeah.
the van.
Tickets, you can give him a call at 786-3375. We do apologize for our audio right now. We're having difficulties. It's cold out there.
So he's going to take a suplex.
Snowstorm just
I
came
believe the
through.
audio's coming through okay, sir.
Another suplex. Look at Hitman. This could be all it.
What Chris screwed up there is he didn't have his feet planted properly on that. You know, you see all this stuff, Dave, and it's 20/20 vision now. But
Right. I mean, you go back and you watch stuff, and
Boy.
you can always critique what could have been better, but
Still tough company.
yeah,
5 minutes in the match, 5 minutes remaining.
the referee's Donnie LeBeau. That was Jeff's uncle.
So how many minutes we got left in our TV time limit?
Good guy.
Minutes left, TV time.
He was our Marty Miller
Rick
of the
Pitts is down,
NWF.
forearm smash.
yeah.
Bandit doesn't
Remember Marty Miller?
himself yet.
Oh, yeah.
He's not,
AWA ref.
Clothesline sure did.
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, he is. He's
And the funny thing is, Don LeBeau had a twin brother named Ron LeBeau as well.
Yeah.
Identical twins. Yeah.
Grizzly Stevens or whoever.
Whoa, that was right. I'm telling you, this Bandit, he was. I can see where Jeff's coming from.
He's smart.
Yeah, he was dangerous.
Dangerous is the word, yeah. Jesus.
I want to tell you right now, next week,
I mean, that looked like it was supposed to be a backdrop that got turned into a German suplex that almost went wrong.
That almost turned into a pile driver that, yeah, damn near went wrong.
We'll explain the rules next week, but people, you're going to
What
want
is
to
your
see that.
surprise? I want to know what that surprise
Gotta
is.
settle down, Jeff. Gotta settle down. It's coming.
I want to see it. I'm excited.
I'll be third
The hell's that instrument, Dave, that keeps going in and out, and you got the keys?
I'm gonna warn you.
It's like an air
I'm
thing.
going to be watching that match real close.
Can't remember what they call that thing.
He's been fined $1,000.
But that's what that move was going to look like. This is one of those things.
Any more of his stuff, I'm going to have to suspend him indefinitely. So I'm going to be keeping a close eye on him tonight. And, ladies and gentlemen, if I do break away,
Yeah, like you said, though,
right off the ring.
the guy should not have been working.
Yeah.
slapping him in the face. I don't see a fist. I see a slap. Man, oh man.
Boy, as we were saying,
Dr. Dre has just been interfering in too many matches, and I can't, he's, and some late breaking news
mean,
I'll let you know a little bit earlier. Oh, pile driver. A double pile driver. Oh, my. Ring the bell.
Oh, disqualified him, I suppose.
Free John LeBeau is called for the bell.
Yep, disqualification for use of a pile driver.
I don't know if it was the pile driver. I think it was the double teaming, but he didn't get out for the 5 count.
leg out of the ring. I don't know why. What is he doing to the bandit?
Holy
I'm about ready to go over there and see what's...
Hold on just a second here. What's in this?
Get some control to the ring, Jeff.
Who the hell is that guy in the red jacket?
What's this guy doing? Get him on.
Uncontrolled, disqualified both teams.
Get something going here.
Camera's messing up on us here.
Yep.
Get this Brad.
Chris Logan, Hitman Hernandez,
Brad on out of here.
and the Bandits. No way! That's it. Referee Don LeBeau has disqualified both teams.
Okay, both teams got DQ'd for some reason. Match went out of control.
And we're back.
And we are back. The promos aren't there. The public service announcements.
All right, welcome back to more NWF Wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, we got another tag team match coming up for you right now. First coming into the ring, ladies and gentlemen, the team of Tom Tyler, the former champion, and the Ice Dragon. Tom Tyler and the Ice Dragon.
I think this is going to be the Rock and Roll Express.
Tyler is, of course, the former champion. Their opponents, ladies and gentlemen, making a return to the NWF.
Yep.
Formerly the Rock and Roll Express. How about a great big welcome back to Double Trouble right here at the Dri-Dock. This will be a one fall with a 10-minute tag team time limit. Down on with Grizzly Stevens and Steve Dinsmore.
And we're back at
Now we got Grizzly at the mic.
Steve Dinsmore, it's a pleasure to be working with you again.
You know, Grizzly Stevens was a really nice guy. Do you remember Grizzly, Dave?
Tom Tyler,
Vaguely, yeah.
Because he was there at the pole barn for a while at the same time you were in there.
Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, the Ice Dragon I'm familiar with, but some of the other ones I don't know too much about.
Well, I'm very familiar with Tom Tyler, having taken the title away from him not too long ago. And
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I want to congratulate you on that too.
thank you very much. I appreciate it. We better get the bell rung here. The referee's calling for the bell for the start.
Yeah, I wonder why Tim wanted to change his name again.
To Tom Tyler?
Yeah.
You know, from what I remember, he just wanted to get away from the Barbarians gimmick.
Oh, okay.
I think Tim felt that, you know, while with the kids and stuff, they were big kids, right? Big oxy kids and stuff for the NWF.
Yeah.
But in reality, he wasn't a big guy in, Road Warrior style.
Right.
So I just think he felt almost like it didn't make sense to be that,
Right.
That's what I think anyway. I just remember him being very disgruntled over wanting to be the Barbarians. As a matter of fact, when we did Superstar Spectacular 87 and Jerry came back for that one, he was in town, and they did the tag team, Tim was very specific with me that he did not want to be called the Barbarians, that it was going to be Tom and Jerry Tyler.
Yeah.
Another tag out.
So yeah, I think he just was adamant, I should say, that he did not want to be the Barbarians.
Taken to the cleaners at this point. See that? He's going to have to do something to get him.
Well, I can understand.
Well, he moved the ring with that one.
You know, I mean,
Kicked out again. Tom Tyler about ready to
Barbarian's course and run,
Like I
and
said, I'm not too familiar with Tom Tyler. Ice Dragon, I am. I've
you
seen
know,
Ice Dragon
Well,
play.
Tom
time for
Tyler
a
does have
change.
to be a capable wrestler
Yeah.
if he is going to have taken the title away from Kid Hot Stuff Kelsey.
Yeah.
We got another
You know,
tag
Mike
out
was
here.
really. Mike was the Greg Gagne of the NWF. Not very flashy, but very good sound technical wrestler. Mike Bauer.
right.
Yeah.
Kicked out again. Ice Dragon is showing a lot more resilience than I gave him credit for.
I think the Ice Dragon and his partner might be a little bit.
You know, one of these days I'm gonna have to go for a
Why he
pizza.
did that, but one Double Trouble
You're gonna
just
go for a
Irish
pizza?
whipped
Oh,
Ice Dragon into
Yep.
the
I know what you mean by that.
I think they might just be doing that to teach these guys a little bit of a lesson. I think they want to show people that.
You know, my fiance and I haven't gone out for pizza yet.
They're ready
It's
to take
good
on all
pizza.
comers at all times.
I gotta
Oh, I
say.
know. I
I'm
bet.
not sure why, but Tom Tyler just gave him a clean break, and I'm not too sure he.
Good clothesline. Tim was good.
I think
Oh
Tim was
yeah.
good.
Almost took his head off there.
definitely.
He was good at bumping. He was good at
He rolled underneath that one.
actual ring work.
Doing those short Irish whips though in the ropes, really, Chris should have been backing him into the ropes, then throwing him.
He's got the man down. He's
Oh my gosh, I can nitpick so bad, can't I?
got him up for a score.
Well, you know, it's easy to do now, but
What a
Right.
slam.
Got him for an elbow. 1, 2. Referee's checking the shoulders, making sure they're both down, but seems to be kicking out. Just at the
One
right
thing I will say that I don't like that the new kids do now, the new guys in wrestling,
now. What's he gonna do with him?
I hate it when they go to do the Irish whip and they stomp their feet while they throw them. You ever notice that?
Shoulder right to the midsection.
yeah.
What force?
It's happening a lot these days, and I know it's like they're trying to make it more like, we're throwing you. But it's just like, it's getting overdone to the point where it's like, you get too many super kicks in a match.
Double teaming is
Yeah.
You don't always need to do that. It seems like everybody's always doing it that way, and it kind of bugs me a little bit.
Look at that. What would you call that? Triple teaming.
You know, sometimes I can see it. You know, like if you're trying to Irish whip a bigger opponent,
Right. There's times to
and
do it.
like
I
you're
get it.
stomping your feet, you're stomping your feet to try and make it look like you're putting more effort into throwing it.
Yeah.
You know,
But I don't think Terrific Tim got a chance to get his licks in on that one.
or same situation where they're blocking the Irish
I
whip.
think the pace is kind of slowed
Right.
down a little bit right now.
You know, you stomp like you're trying to really force it. And,
We got one half of Double Trouble standing
Yeah.
out here, trying to lead his team member on, trying to cheer him, getting him up and going again. Now Double Trouble is in a desperate tag situation here. They need a tag. Looks like he's setting him up for a suplex.
Oh,
Beautiful vertical suplex.
oh, that was a good suplex.
Tom Tyler is definitely using the ropes to his advantage today. He got out of that one too. I don't believe it.
I have
Oh,
to admit-
reversal. One.
I have to admit, Tom Tyler shows me quite a bit.
Well, like I say, he had to have been a capable wrestler to take the title.
Ice Dragon. You know, it's kind of funny. Some of these guys, like, I think of Ice Dragon. Back in the day, he was all just totally into the NWF. You know, he was what we'd call a diehard.
yep.
And now today, he's just a distant memory to him.
Yep.
And the situation winds up where if you've lost
Now he's more worried about his restaurant, which I can understand.
Well, art and life and everything else. You know, he just, his life has went into another direction, and he doesn't have the interest to want to relive the past like some of the rest of us do. Sometimes like to do.
Right.
That's all. Nothing wrong with that. Not everybody's going to want to do that. So
He's got him against the ropes.
Oh, a nice.
But you know, he's always welcome if he ever changes his mind.
He's got the man hurt.
Yeah.
He's got him staggered. He's got him
Got to
swaying.
stay on him.
Reversal.
You know, I mean,
oh, backslide. Nice move by Mike. See what I mean? Mike was very technical.
Kicked out of that.
He saw
yep.
that one coming.
Snapmare.
Problem when you get tied into a
Eyes going
situation
into
like
crucifix.
Beautiful crucifix. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
Ring the bell.
Solid in the ring, Mike was. Solid. Absolutely solid for the time
Yep.
and everything.
If I'm correct, didn't Mike have a little bit of amateur wrestling background?
Your winners.
I don't know. He might have. I don't know that, though.
And we'll be right back with more.
But he
NWF
definitely
Wrestling.
was you know, he cared about his appearance in the ring, like his image and how he looked, and he just wasn't flashy. He wasn't flamboyant. He wasn't, his character could have used some more. But in the ring, he was solid.
Like you said, technically, in the ring, he was solid. Character-wise, he needed some more.
Yeah, he just could have done more with his character for sure.
NWF action, ladies and gentlemen, here at the Dri-Dock.
If I'm correct, now we're going to be seeing Crusher Crossen.
Coming into the ring right now,
I don't think
ladies and
so.
gentlemen, this is a singles match. He's had a
Or no, because
must-stop
Jeff's
Russian.
out.
Would you please make welcome the Russian?
Oh, maybe you're right. It's Crusher Crossen against the Russian Bear. It's worse than I thought. It wasn't the tag team. It's just me against the Bear. Good Lord. Yeah, this is going to be not good, you guys.
You know, if you want Crusher, you might have the ability to kind of skip through this. I think our viewers would understand.
Former NWF Junior Champion, Crusher Crossen, ladies and gentlemen. Crusher Crossen.
At least they're not booing me.
That's the one thing I didn't like when the NWF went to the Dri-Dock.
What's that?
The title that you held, that Kelsey held, you know, all the people that were part of the NWF title lineage, once this NWF started, they were considered junior heavyweight champions.
Right, they like to use junior because they felt they had to justify that we were smaller. Kind of silly if you think about it nowadays. Now this was all an angle, and you know, you can imagine how uncomfortable it was for not only me but Larry. But I basically went and got Luscious Larry to be in my corner, and with all the history that me and him just had and went through.
Yeah.
Can you imagine how awkward this was for both of us?
Oh, yeah.
But Larry was professional about it, as was I. We did our job here. We didn't let personal vendettas or anything like that get in the way of any of this. You know, the fact that Larry tried to screw me over with the NWF, I let that. I didn't let that bother me at this point. You know?
Yeah.
So.
Might be a little mismatch there.
Definitely.
So yeah, so now you're in the ring now with the guy. So what do you do, guys? You're in the ring with a big fat tub like this bear that will not work with you. That will not give you an inch. You know, you try to get some moves in offensively and he won't give you anything. So what do you do? Now, I'm selling for him, as you can see, doing everything I can to do my part. But come on, man. You can do something. You know, fall down, take a hit, whatever. You know, but he won't. Well, just watch for yourself. You'll see moments in this match where I try to get some offense going, and this big tub doesn't give me an inch.
He's got to. I've seen the Russians.
You know.
No, I mean, I put him in a hammer lock like this, and yeah, he's selling the hammer lock. But come on, how hard is that? I'm talking about selling for me, Dave.
Yeah. Well, you know,
they cause havoc in all the rings, all the arenas that they go to, all the time. That's what I hear.
The thing is, somebody doesn't want to work with you, you make them work.
Right, but as you can see, when you got a big slob like this, it's pretty hard to do that when you're a smaller guy.
Yeah.
You can't always force your way into making that happen. So look at, I'm hitting him and he's not selling for me.
Well, you're work hitting them.
Just made a cardinal rule mistake against these Russians.
Well, you know, they make it perfectly clear they don't like the USA. They don't like.
You know, that's
any of the Americans or anything.
That's part of what I'm saying. You know, he's not working. You let him know, hey.
That's just what I mean right there.
Right, but see, in their mind, I'm too small, so they're too big. There's no way I'm ever going to win this match, so they need to make it a squash in their mind. Despite the history, despite who I am, despite whatever anything else, in their mind it should be a squash, and that's why they're doing what they do, and they think that's the way it should be. But what here's the thing, if he would just work with me, we could make this match amazing. We could get this house going crazy. They want to see these guys get the crap kicked out of them. And we could have gave him something like that. Now I'm trying, I'm doing all this stuff, and he is just sitting there doing a rope-a-dope like Muhammad Ali or something.
They're really not doing anything to him right over the top.
You know, he's just that doesn't excite the fans.
You know, I hate to say it, but if I would have been in that situation,
Now he's playing innocent right now.
please
It's very frustrating for me to sit out here after having tangled with both.
throwing a few spuds at him.
Doing the double teaming tactics. It's very hard for me to just sit.
Yeah, you see, it's easy to say that nowadays, but like, you know, when you're 18 or 16, 17, 18 years old, and you don't own the league anymore, you just kind of, and you're in the ring with the new owner and it's his tag team. It's really not that easy, you know, to get these guys to listen to you.
Yeah.
Luscious Larry's getting a little frustrated with the ref right now.
Well, definitely. Luscious Larry sees that the referee is doing everything that he can, but he still can't see all the outside interference. The referee does not have eyes in the back.
Larry's doing an awesome job, though, to get the crowd going for me in my corner.
Situations where you've got a tag team match.
You know, Larry was definitely doing.
Outside of the ring.
He's definitely doing his part here, for sure. The only person that's not doing his part is this big fat guy. Now look at him. I sunset flip over him. He could have rolled into it. Come on, man. Oh, Dave, I just get so frustrated when I watch this stuff now.
Oh, I know. I know. He's he's another one that didn't belong in the business.
Yeah, not at all.
He just tagged Luscious Larry. Luscious Larry was up on the ring apron.
Ernie was much better than this guy.
Yeah.
But even Ernie had a little bit of this "I'm invincible, you can't knock me down" attitude, and you can't have that. I'm saying that's just wrong to have that. To try to make that image for your team, it's not gonna. You know, you're a Russian tag team. What do you think the fans want to see?
As much as the Russians break the rules, and Luscious Larry just took,
You know, in this time frame anyway.
I don't believe it.
Right. I mean,
They're showing that they don't like Luscious Larry up on the apron.
you know, you look at it
Just
and
making a mistake here. He just sickled the Russian against the top rope. And Crusher
you know, you look at Nikita Koloff and Ivan Koloff. You know, they were supposed to be the big bad Russians, but they still worked.
Now, I've got the metal chair, and I'm hitting these guys, and they're not selling. I have a metal chain. I'm hitting you. You better knock your ass down. And just set up, and then look at this. This Russian team, they ruined it.
This match out of control.
Yep.
Very poor drop kick by Larry there.
Seem to be working quite well together, actually, against these Russians.
You see that, Dave?
Luscious Larry still has the Russian beast in the ring.
Match is completely out of control, the referee said.
Did you see that drop kick Larry tried doing?
Yeah, that's what I was saying, you know.
Gotta laugh a little bit at it.
We're still not done here.
I'm not. Look, I had my blunders on the drop kick too here and there, but that was about as bad as I've seen. But Larry did his job though for coming in, being in my corner, and getting the crowd going, and that's what the whole thing was. It was all about bringing Larry back into the league, and this was all. Again, remember, I sold the league at this point, so Ernie's running it, and this was their deal. They were bringing Larry in, and they wanted me to bring him back on camera, so I did. Like I said, there's a lot of bad blood between me and Larry, and we still weren't over this. This was pretty fresh still from what happened in 1987. It's probably maybe 6 months later.
Right.
So, you know, for them stealing all the money at the Armory and taking the ring and all that shit.
You know, you look back at it, it was in March that they stole the ring, if I remember correctly.
Right. It's about 7 months earlier from this point in time.
The six-man tag team combination of
This is a good match here coming up. This six-man tag. You got Mr. Macho in there in the yellow tights, now going by Jimmy Voigt. The Silver Hawk. and I think they said Terrific Tim, right? And then they're going to go against Dr. Dread, Dion Dallas, and Ricky Vaughn, who Jamie McParland, the Irish Terror, youngest of all these guys. Jamie was only probably 13 here. And that's Jamie's in the white.
He might have been like 14.
Maybe 14.
Just like to tell you, so you don't forget, pleasure is all years that I'm sitting next
Next time we're on camera together, we'll have to ask him. Can't remember if he's a year younger than me or 2 years younger.
Yeah. Good match, though. It's actually a good match that they're going to have, from what I remember, anyway.
Well, I mean, of course it's going to be a good match. You know, you got Macho in there. You got Jamie in there.
You got Dread.
Yep.
Dion was pretty good. Silverhawk wasn't bad. Yeah, so all these, again, I'm looking here and I'm seeing a lot of guys who know how to work. And this is the difference now. When you have everybody that's willing to work a match, now you'll see the difference. This is what I'm talking about. This is what was lacking in that last one that I was in with that fat bear.
Mm-hmm.
Jimmy Voigt has never been known to break vicious forearms to the back, but each one perfectly legal.
But yeah, they can make it entertaining. Jamie's such a good hand in there. He was.
Oh,
Jamie
yeah.
was good. He doesn't think he was, but he was damn good.
He goes right after him. He takes him back to the corner.
Macho was pretty good too, like you said.
Yeah.
Full Nelson.
You know, Silverhawk, I know nothing about. I wasn't part of the NWF at this point.
Like, I don't know who he was either, to be honest with you. But I'll tell you this: he was good. Like, he wasn't bad from what I remember in the ring. I can't remember who exactly he was either. And it's funny, I can't. You know, it's been so talking 30, 40 years ago. But yeah. And Dr. Dread, of course, he's trying. The way to think of Dread is he's like a little Mad Dog Vachon in a mask. That Mad Dog was kind of his inspiration. That's who he's trying to be, just in a mask. And that was kind of his gimmick.
Yeah.
That's why they always say the most vicious man in wrestling, Dr. Dread. That was kind of always call him that.
I want to know what's going on. You never see me wrestling, guys.
That's Hitman Hernandez at the commentating table now with Grizzly.
I'll tell you what, Hitman, I don't think it's a matter of avoiding you. I think it's definitely a matter.
You know, but this was all part of our cable show. And remember, a lot of the training that we got back in these days wasn't necessarily formal training. It was these TV tapings. This was part of your training, was being in these matches. You were it's kind of like the way to think of the NWF in these days, Dave, was how do you teach a baby how to swim? You throw them in the deep end. You throw the kid in the deep end. And that's, you know, you're kind of just throwing into it, and you kind of just learn from it. Now it's not all that. There was some ring time before the cameras were turned on. But like I said, I worked with Chris Logan. I worked with all the new guys, Tommy Tucker, Chris Logan, Terrific Tim. I worked with all those guys before the camera would come on. Jeff would always give them to me to help smarten them up a little bit. So they get a bit, but most of your training would come from matches like this in these days. That's why I was going to say, Dave, that's why the kids today have it so much better. That's what I was going to say. With formal training.
They're not training you want to do the moves. You really don't learn until you're in the ring, putting everything together.
Right, in the match.
You know, that's, you know, it's like they say there's a difference in being in shape like Larry was or being in ring shape.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people may be like, oh, it's the same thing. No, it's not.
Right. That's
you know, right now, if Crusher or I got in the ring and took a bump, it'd kill us.
Yeah,
you know, we'd feel it.
Because we're not doing it regularly on a regular basis like we were back in the day, you know, and plus we're older. You know.
You know, the Undertaker described it best. You know, when you're in the ring, your body gets calloused.
Yeah. Well, it's like riding a bike, though. But here's the thing, and it is like riding a bike. So it's been a long time, but if I got in the ring, do you think I could throw a drop kick? Yeah, I could. I don't know what it's going to feel like when I land. I'm not going to feel the best, but I can throw that drop kick still. I guarantee you that.
Right.
So it's like riding a bike. You don't forget. You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
But it would take your body a while to build up the calluses to feel the bump on a regular basis.
Yeah.
You know, like right now, if you and I got in the ring and ran the ropes, we get all the welts on our backs.
That's my play money. That's my money.
You know.
We have our own money. I have my own money. Roy has his own money.
Well, be that as it may, inside the ring right
you know, we get the welts because we haven't run the ropes in years.
I'll tell you though, I'm watching this match and I remember this ring. It was a nice ass ring, man. That was a nice ring. We talk about it all the time, but it was nice bumping in this ring because it had a really good spring in the center. It was one of the old breakdown rings, of course. They had the center spring, but it was a nice ring as far as taking bumps goes. Very, very nice. It had real good bounce to it. Jamie was good.
Oh,
Can't say enough about Jamie McParland. You know, he was on here with us a couple shows ago, and
you notice the referee Don LeBeau stuck his hand up underneath the chin to see that it was not a chokehold.
Yeah, he was poking him in the neck.
I would have loved for my intended reason for bringing Jamie in to come to fruition, but
just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not.
Yeah.
And now we have
you know, I think he and I could have done something that's tag team.
Ricky Vaughn trying to get out of the ring. He's trying to cause the break of the hold by getting into the ropes. Now, the referee Don LeBeau has definitely got his hands full. I've mentioned before when I was speaking with Steve Dinsmore out here that I am an advocate of 2 referees for a tag team match or a match where management and interferences have been involved. And I believe
Jamie was a natural though. Like he had no trouble getting in there and taking bumps.
Did you see Ricky Vaughn trip there? He shouldn't even be
I totally agree with you on that. I mean,
on 2 feet. He just tripped and fell down, and then they tried to.
You know, Jamie and I went to school together. We started hanging out after school, and realized his love for the business, and that's when I broke him apart.
Yeah.
Check us out.
And I'm just looking. I noticed on those boots of Dr. Dread, very clever of Dread. He got the initials DD to go with Dr. Dread, which I thought was very clever.
Yeah, I mean, you know, but if you look at it, a year earlier, you know, I had boots just like that. He copied me.
But why would you get DD for Dr. Dread? I don't understand.
We've got a melee going here. I don't think
why would I have gotten boots with DD? You know, Dixie Dave.
Yeah, those boots were Dave's old boots that Dread has, everybody.
Even though he doesn't hold a title,
you know, I mean, granted, yes, he had to fit his whole motif to the blue and red gimmick, but well, that's what happens when you try and get a free pair of boots.
You know, Dion's a bit wiry, right? Skinny, wiry guy, but he had a lot of heart for his character and charisma for it. That part was good. And Mr. Macho was just a great, you know, the guy in the yellow. He was awesome. You know, we talk about characters.
I have to agree with you. And there's a beautiful body slam by Dr. Dread.
Dr. Dread, when he wants to, can use wrestling maneuvers.
I don't know why Macho wanted to get away from Mr. Macho. Again, he's another one who changed his name. He's now Jimmy Voigt in this, but well, I almost thought Jeff was going to let him reverse it on him.
Either that or I thought Jeff was going to drop him on the top rope there.
Yeah, do like a slingshot.
or bring them over and just suplex them straight out.
The guy in the ring there, Terrific Tim, passed away. Tim passed away, what, last year, I think? I think it was last year. We lost him.
Oh.
Died young.
Too bad.
Yeah. He's only in his 50 or so. He had some health issues is all, and it just caught up to him.
These boys are I'm going to take it out in their hide for using my moves. I'm sick and tired of this.
Well, let me tell you something, Hitman. As far as wrestling maneuvers are concerned, I don't think you can actually patent anything. If someone can see how you do a maneuver, and they can
Very entertaining six-man, though.
Oh, yeah.
Grizzly, you were looking at the first stable in the NWF to ever be made. These men have luscious
A
lips.
sleeper. Now that is a chokehold. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah, the sleeper.
I want to know what's going on.
So Jamie McPartlin always claimed Ricky Vaughn. He said he never won a match. Well, he won this one.
And we have a melee going here. Ricky Vaughn is taking it to Jimmy Boy.
Because I believe they won on the submission there in that sleeper. So Jamie was a part of the winning team.
Yep.
It's a complete victory on the part of Dr. Dread, Dion Dallas,
I want to know
and
what's
Ricky
going on.
Vaughn.
Where's the referee?
Gosh, is the sleeper still a thing, Dave? Do they do that as a finisher?
Winners are Dr.
Very
Not
seldom,
really.
huh?
More of a wear down.
Just a wear down, huh?
Dion Dallas.
You know, I mean, the current WWF World Champions using it on occasion.
Yeah.
Punishment on the back of Terrific Tim.
Yeah, Jamie loved doing that kangaroo-style bunny kick for his drop kick, landing on his back, doing the back bump drop kick.
Yep.
I wasn't a big. I never liked doing it that way. I just. There's Crusher Crossen in there with Jamie, and
Congratulating Jamie on his win.
yep. I don't know what that belt is that Jeff has, huh? Interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't always have the answers, guys. I can't remember that one. We're almost. This show's about almost done. We only got about maybe a little over 10 more minutes to go on it, but.
Yep.
The Fan of the Month Club. Yeah, this was something we were trying with the cable show back in the day to get people to send us letters. We got a few letters that came in too, I remember. Not a whole lot, but there were some people that mailed in letters.
Ladies and gentlemen, you see him out here earlier, and I'm going to introduce him in a second. First of all, I'd like to introduce out of Moscow, Russia, the other half of the Russian Scorpions. Ladies and gentlemen, the Russian
This would be Dirty Ernie.
the Russian Beast.
Ernie Ellis. The new owner at this point of the NWF.
Yep.
I was only in charge of the television side of things. I was taking care of the cable show and all that. Mobile van unit, all that stuff. That was my job now at this point.
Ladies and gentlemen,
And the only
You know,
reason
I'm honestly-
the only reason they had me do that day was because they didn't know how.
Yeah.
No, really.
How about that? Well,
What were you gonna say?
Crossen, what do you got to say for yourself?
Oh, I was just going to say, I wonder if
Between us two here at the table, I'm feeling
the ring I saw Ernie using a few years back was the same ring that he bought from you.
No, because you know,
Ring that you
me and Troy bought the ring back from Ernie when he stopped doing the Dri-Dock. After a while, he stopped doing it and he wasn't using it. And Troy and I came along, and Ernie needed the money, so he sold the ring back to us. And so that's how me and Troy Steenerson got the ring. And we were going to start the NWF up again. And then Eddie Sharkey heard about it and said, why don't you just come work for me instead? I think Eddie was trying to
avoid the competition.
avoid another league. Yeah, he just didn't want us to do any, you know, he knew how successful we were at the NWF before. And I don't think he wanted to see it happen again at the time.
Yeah.
I mean, wrestling specialist said it never happened, and now he's back in the NWF.
Due respect to Eddie,
I think that's pretty good, personally.
he can always draw a better crowd than he could.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest card Eddie ever did, I think, was the St. Paul Armory, and I don't know how many people showed up for that.
Tell me you get along with them.
With who?
The Russians.
I don't have nothing to do with no commie.
But I mean, on a consistent basis.
Yeah, consistently. I mean, we consistently would have big crowds at the Armory, for the exception of one.
Yeah. Well, that July show at the Anoka Armory was weak, and then
we got some hot and heavy action going on.
and then the Brooklyn Park
Yeah, Brooklyn Park though there were reasons we couldn't. The problem, if you ever been to Brooklyn Park, Minnesota, there's no downtown. It doesn't have a downtown, so where do you advertise? Where do you hang posters up? That was a tough geographical situation in Brooklyn Park.
Right.
And the Armory was just built in Brooklyn Park. It was brand new at the time, and it was in an area that was like newly undeveloped area, so it wasn't like a huge like community area. So it was just really tough to advertise that one. You know, we had the cable show, but you know, that was about it.
Whether they've dealt with you or not, you just gotta keep.
You know, I don't think that the Champion Legion's there anymore either.
They're big, they're slow.
No.
You use speed and little brains, and you'll beat them every time.
Yeah, and Eddie got some big crowds there when he teamed up with us. That's why he wanted us with him on that one. He wanted us to do a dual event there, and he picked Champlin specifically because he wanted to be as close to Anoka as he could get.
Yep.
Because he knew how popular we were up there at the time.
Right.
Luscious Larry back here now and in singles match with Dirty Ernie, aka the Russian Beast. You know, Ernie's still in the business, like we said, Dave, and his son is now and everything. And I mean, Ernie's the one that kind of stuck with it in the indie scene and just kept things going, kept doing things.
Oh yeah,
Out in the outskirts of Minnesota.
And not just in Minnesota. I mean,
South Dakota.
Yep. I ran into him when I lived out in South Dakota. And, you know, that was a fun deal.
Yeah.
You know, I knew a guy who was a bar who would put on wrestling shows once in a while, and my kids wanted to meet some pro wrestlers, and I walked in, and there stood Dirty Ernie, still in that flannel shirt.
Yeah. I always said that, you know, for at this point in time, Ernie wasn't wanting to do the Dirty Ernie gimmick. He was wanting to do this Russian character. But I always said, you know, Ernie, your Dirty Ernie gimmick is great. You know, I don't know why he wanted to get away from that. I always thought his Dirty Ernie gimmick was good. You know, had the chainsaw and everything. It was a really good gimmick. And
oh yeah. But you know, when I go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, Luscious Larry. You know, how can we not do a show without talking about? You know, we were talking on Forward last week about egos in wrestling. You talk about an ego, man. This guy, Luscious Larry. I don't think anybody had a bigger ego than he did. He thought he was going to be the next coming of Hulk Hogan.
Yep.
Little bit better drop kick there than he did on the other drop kick that we've seen, but you know, but Larry, like I said, the reason Larry was over is because of the way I promoted him in October. I made him a big deal, and I did it right, and that's why 450 people showed up. You know?
Yeah, it's Dixie Dave.
But Larry, though, Dave, thought it was all because of Luscious Larry, and it all went to his freaking head, man.
Yep.
And what happened, Dave, when Luscious Larry broke away from the NWF with the NCWA and tried to go head-to-head against the NWF in August? What happened to Larry's show?
To my knowledge, didn't he get like 10 people in the crowd?
Yeah, there's about 10 people there at his show. That was the big draw that Larry had. He just what Larry didn't. If Larry, you know, if he just would have took a direction, he'd be fine. There are some people that are good at promoting, and there's other people that are good at wrestling, and then there's some that shouldn't be promoting at all, but could be decent wrestling, and that was where Larry fell into the whole thing. He just wasn't a promoter. He didn't know how. He wasn't good at it. He thought, you know, he seen the success that he got with us, and he thought he could just recreate that.
Yep.
Didn't work real well for him, unfortunately.
Well, Larry wasn't the greatest talker.
No, he wasn't. But he had the look. He was almost like, he was kind of the NWF's Goldberg, right?
Yeah.
He had the look. He had the image. And that's exactly how I promoted him in '86. I just promoted the image of this invincible, luscious Larry, this big, invincible guy. And I remember Larry wanted to do a match and everything for leading up to the show in October. I was like, no, you're not going to do a match. If people want to see you, they're going to pay money and come to the show. That's how they're going to see Luscious Larry.
I don't know what these two chumps are talking about, but I'm.
You know,
Luckily,
that's what they did with, like you said, that's what they did with Andre.
yeah, and not that Larry was Andre the Giant, but I'm just saying, you're going to have a big attraction. That's how you promote it. And that's what I took it from, because I knew that's how they would do Andre when the AWA would bring Andre to town. So I said, we're going to treat Larry like our Andre, and we're going to do the same, use that same formula that I learned from, and we're going to do it here, and it worked.
Yep.
I'm not trying to brag about all this, Dave. I'm just saying Larry, Luscious Larry, didn't know how to promote himself. That's what I'm trying to say.
And I mean, I hate to say it, I know how to promote myself better than Larry promoted himself.
Yeah. Yeah, this newcomer is the Equalizer. Young kid, about 16 years old, built like a brick house, and he was kind of hanging out with Larry because Larry's a big guy too, and so it's like this is like Larry's kind of bringing this young kid into it, named the Equalizer. That's him. He's, man, if you see him with the shirt off, he's just like a miniature Larry.
Right.
But man, talk about the Equalizer, good hit and everything. Man, was he green. God, I remember how just rough and green he was in these early days here when he first came in. Had the, again, like Larry, had the look, but just didn't have any skill in the beginning. You know, I don't know. I wasn't around too much longer here at the Dri-Dock, so I can't tell you what happened with the Equalizer.
You know,
if you went
throughout
on,
his entire body, he had the skill, but from the, the 6 inches between your ears, he didn't have that.
Right.
Hey, I wasn't being nice to anybody.
And we got the Destructors. That's John Hoffman and Ryan Rude, Mystery Man, Leslie Johnson in their corner. And they're going to go against Grizzly Stevens, the big guy. I'll tell you, though, Grizzly, big guy and everything, but nice guy. Super nice guy. And very good in the ring as well, Grizzly was.
Yeah.
Very solid. Ryan definitely knew what he was doing in there. So this is going to be a good match. It's not going to be very long, though, because we're almost out of time on this taping here. We only got a few minutes left on this one. But this is what the NWF was in this time. It was still some of us kids. It was the adults now. And it was a mix. It was a real true mix, much like how they do today, Dave. Now, young, small guys are in the ring with the regulars.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what we got going on here as well.
Well, we got a little pulling of a hair. I tell you, me and Dr. Drip have been watching these guys real close.
There you see some power. Grizzly ain't taking nothing from that little man.
That's right.
He calls him a little man, but Ryan was a pretty big kid for his size, his age and everything. Got a bit of a muscle to him. You can tell he worked out.
Fans really enjoying the matches this evening. February 16th at the Dri-Dock. Once again, get your tickets when you can. You really got to come down here and see this. Well, there's an armbar. Twist armbar. Whoa. Nice sledge. Now, I know we're running
Fireman's carry.
I don't know how much exactly we got left.
Yep.
I like to see the big man's using some scientific skills and he's looking good.
He's got just a straight armbar.
He's big and he's agile. That's why he's.
Well, I just heard that we
Sweet
have 1
luck.
minute left. We have what, 1 minute left, Jeff?
Yeah, 1
We're gonna
minute
have to
left.
break away.
See, when we recorded these shows at the Dri-Dock, we were recording them, for an episode, so they were all kind of laid in as the show was going to air. So they knew when we were reaching 60 minutes.
Here we come up for a body slam. Look at the action in the NWF. What a slam.
They weren't at the tape as they were live.
It's devastating.
Right. Well, kind of like WWE used to do back in the day.
NWF is really. Who's coming in the ring?
Tom Tyler interferes.
Tom Tyler is in the ring, and he is the man that had the title when Grizzly Stevens won it from Tom Tyler. He lost it.
And then the Predator comes in to save his partner, Grizzly. That was the
And that Grizzly Stevens partner, the Predator's coming in. What about the Tom
Predator.
Well,
He was
close
one of the
the
bars.
show.
Remember. Yeah. So yeah, there we go. We got through another Dri-Dock taping, Dave, and one with the Crusher, one of the worst matchups you could ever conceive, Crusher Crossen against the Russian Bear.
Yep.
Good Lord.
So, well, we had another good week. No question.
For those of you who've seen the Crusher versus the Russian Bear,
I'm sorry.
You really didn't see me at my best. That I'll say. But what was that, Dave?
Oh, I just said for those who saw that match, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is. But, I don't know. He was a nice guy, Steve Payette, but he didn't belong in this. I mean, you can't just be a big guy and not ever get knocked down and take any bumps. And the problem with Steve is he didn't do any of that. And you really don't, you're not viable that way. You're not, and your matches aren't going to be anything spectacular and people aren't going to really care. And that's what we had there, a match that was lackluster.
Yeah.
So, what do you do? What do? You get stuck in the ring with somebody like that? What the heck can you do? And I sold a bit, as you've seen, but after a while, you can only do so much. And I'm not going to turn it into an outright squash for him. So,
no. Not with the history that you had.
Yeah. So, but I don't know. It was around this time though. You get matches like that, and then after a while, I'm thinking like my dad's telling me I need to go back to school, and I'm thinking like maybe it's the time to take a break from all of this, and that's when I kind of stepped away from the NWF shortly after this.
Right.
And unfortunately, when I stepped away, the other guys didn't stay too much longer. The Destructors weren't around for much longer. Jamie didn't stay around for much longer. Once I left, and Ice Dragon, they all kind of left as well. So,
well, I mean, to be honest, here's Dixie Dave giving Crusher Crossen some props.
Yeah.
To be honest, you were kind of the heartbeat of the NWF, and without you there, it wasn't the NWF.
Yeah, I know. And John Hoffman has told me as much, when for his reasons of leaving. He goes, if you weren't a part of it, we didn't want to be anymore either.
Right.
Nothing against the big guys, nothing against Ernie and them, but they just didn't have the same drive that we had.
Right. I mean,
the same atmosphere. And
and probably some of those guys are worried that should they stick around, they'd just be used for
crash dummies.
Yeah.
Just to get their bigger guys over. And it's kind of funny. What ended up happening to the NWF in the Dri-Dock days here is, and after I left and everything, Jim Mitchell, another name that's people remember in the Metro, the Iron Duke, right? He came poking around, and he wanted the ring. He wanted Larry's ring, and he got it because Larry built a sister ring to ours. And then he wanted to merge with the NWF. And the reason he wanted to merge with Ernie's NWF was because he wanted the time slot that we had.
Right.
See, Jim knew our show was popular as hell. He knew that we were on for like 4 years and we had a following, and he wanted in that time slot. And he figured if he could merge with the NWF, he could take over the time slot, which he did.
Right.
And then the NWF became the NCWA. But guess what Mitchell did with the NCWA? He took all the NWF guys and they became the referees, the squash guys, the jobbers, and everything else for his guys.
Right. And, being honest, I'm not going to lie, when I had cable at one point, I saw the NCWA. They had a call-in line. I called in and told them what I thought of them.
Yeah.
They didn't like it and cut my call. They said on air that somehow the call got disconnected.
Yeah, no, Jim Mitchell was. I remember my friend Scott Jameson. Well, I thought I want to get on here. He wanted to be a guest with us on here. I got to get him on here one of these days. But anyway, Scott said he said it best when he compared Jim Mitchell. Like, first of all, when I met Eddie Sharkey, I mentioned, because when I met Eddie Sharkey, it was right after our first Armory card, and I was 16, and I met Eddie Sharkey. Steve got the meeting set up with us and everything, and Eddie was so excited to see me and meet me, and I mentioned to Eddie, I said, you know, Eddie, a guy by the name of Jim Mitchell came and showed up at our first Armory show. And Eddie looked me straight in the eyes and he said, kid, he's bad news. Stay away from him. And I took that advice from Eddie and I did exactly what he said. I stayed away from him. I never had nothing to do with Jim Mitchell. I never had nothing to do with the NCWA of Mitchell's NCWA. Look, if Eddie said stay away from him, I stayed away from him. And he not only told me that, he told Steve that, because Steve was with me. Steve didn't listen. Steve didn't listen. He thought Jim Mitchell would be the shit too. And they all got shafted by Mitchell. Even Luscious Larry. Mitchell didn't use any of them.
Yep.
He used his guys. And so, yeah. This is the indie business, you guys. This is the early days of the indie business, and it was a little bit of cutthroat that way. You know, Eddie liked us. He was okay with us, but he did not like Jim Mitchell. They were
we had a lot of promoters that liked, you think about it, we had a lot of promoters that liked us.
Yeah.
You had Eddie that liked us.
Yep.
You had Vern that would turn a blind eye to anything that we do.
Right. Vern wouldn't acknowledge us, but he wouldn't condone us.
Right.
Yep.
And to me that says a lot.
Yeah. I mean, and he allowed the footage. He allowed AWA footage on the Eyewitness News report they did on us.
Yep.
That tells you a lot right there. He didn't have to do that. When Larry Burnett said, hey, can we use the AWA footage? And Vern said, for this story, no, I don't want to be affiliated with that. He did not say that. He said, yes, absolutely, you can use it. So what does that tell you? So got to read between the lines on this kind of stuff, you guys.
Like I said, Vern may not have acknowledged us on air, and you may not have directly had a conversation with Vern, but, his agents always took your calls.
Yeah, Roy Nelson is the one I wasn't put in touch with when I'd ever call the offices of the AWA, and I had many conversations with Roy Nelson, and he always would end the call with, keep us abreast to everything you're doing. Always let us know what you're up to. That was always Roy's advice to me. Feel free to call anytime you want. Now, look, if they didn't think we were worth anything or didn't want us doing that, that wouldn't be what I'd be hearing from Roy Nelson.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You would have heard, kid, drop what you're doing, leave us alone.
Of course, my naive thinking, my very naive 16-year-old, 14-year-old, whatever I was thinking at that time was, why don't you have us come on and do an interview segment on All Star Wrestling? That's what I wanted out of this whole deal. But, that wasn't going to happen because Vern always preached, don't try this at home. He can't have us come on then and say, this is what these other kids are doing. So, yeah, it was just, we were too early for Vern was way too old school to even think of training kids or having kids involved or anything like that.
Yeah.
So we were just way too early for that. Now, you look at it nowadays, you got kids getting started in summer camps and these indie promotions, all sorts of things, training in a lot of cases where they train them young. So it's all different now.
The gentleman I was telling you about that I talked to, he was, one of his big things wasn't it a kids run promotion?
Yeah.
And I said, yep. He goes, yeah, kids wrestling was big back then. And I looked at him and I said, you'd be shocked at how big it is now.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was one thing I had Wade McCarty on last week, right, with Wrestling Revolution Keaton, the kayfabe with Keaton. Yep. We were talking backyard wrestling on Keaton's show. That's what Keaton wanted to talk about. We were just giving our opinions of it. And I always wanted to ask Wayne, because as you know, Wayne was in attendance at October, right? He was part of that 450 crowd sellout we did at the Armory. Wayne was there. He was my age. We went to school together, but we didn't know each other at the time. But Wayne was in the front row. And I was going to ask Wayne. Now, Wayne, you knew of the NWF. Did you know that it was run by a 16-year-old kid at the time when you were in that audience? I always wondered if he knew the NWF was run by me at 16, or if he thought maybe there were adults involved and this could not, no way in hell this was run by some kid. I wonder. Because it's not like we went on the show, Dave, and broadcasted,
that we were all kids.
We're all kids and we're all kids running this. I'm sure people thought there were adults behind the scenes, maybe, right?
Right.
I mean, if you read the newspaper articles and all that, they tell the story. They would tell the proper story of it, but not everybody sees that stuff. So it just makes me wonder, I'm curious. I have to ask Wayne that next time he's in chatting with us on these shows. We'll have to ask him.
Right.
Just curious, it'd be interesting to know. But I suppose, Dave, we're getting to the end of the show, and we don't have our regulars in here to chat with us like we usually do, so they're probably busy with the playoffs, the basketball playoffs and everything going on in Sky Sports. So,
with your old timers kicking in, you've forgotten a couple steps of the show.
I did. I guess I can do it at the end. If we want to watch the video preview of what's coming up on the Video Network next.
Well, you may as well let people know.
All right, guys, here it is. This is what's coming up on the Video Network on the 15th of the month. This is what you'll see. Here we go. And we'll be back with you right after this promo.
Yeah.
He throws me against the ropes. What is it? It's a clothesline. Oh my gosh. You put him up against the turnbuckles, putting all his weight into it. All 20 pounds. Tremendous. Oh, and then yank back.
Oh, here with me is Bunis Beefcake. Bunis, what would you have to say about this match? Ruffles is trying to work out of it.
No! Come on, Ruffles!
But no. How many minutes gone? Oh, Ruffles has the Boston Crab.
No! Oh!
If Crossen can grab onto that, comes Dynamite Dude. Pounding away on Ace. Ace did.
Oh!
And now, Dynamite Dude. And now Ace, pounding away on Power Driver Peterson. By Power Driver Peterson on Ace.
Right.
And oh, there goes the body slam. Well, Dynamite Dude really fired up in another one. And a punch right into the eyes. Ring again. Oh, and he chokes him on the rope.
Oh, big guy, I can pick him up. Throw the match around.
And Crusher has a foreign object in there.
Dude, I can see the
beating everybody up.
Oh,
and
Trip to Broadway. Conductor David Bishop. Right.
oh, and now these two are wrestling here are two brothers.
Oh, big.
Oh, it's a knee to the midsection.
Because I can't stand that Peterson. Him and his big mouth. You heard him. You have a match against him coming up.
I'll take care of him, but I want to know why you want to come on my side.
Because
There's Peterson punching Mr. X in the back. I had my foot on a ring. I had my foot on a rope. He just... There's a 3 count! And Pink Peterson loses the match! And the winner, Mr. X! Mr. X is the winner!
Episode.
All right, April 15th. That's what's coming up on the Video Network. It said show 40. It actually was show 41. But yeah, that Crusher Crossen in there at the end there as a referee, but afraid
not practicing what he preaches.
Afraid that shirt wasn't tucked in like it should have been. Yeah, the infamous garage days in the Yoho Municipal Garage Studios. That was fun times. And, this was when we got in the garage, one thing we had that we didn't have when we were in the Group W Cable Studios was freedom. We didn't have Scott Tronson yelling at us for being too loud like he did in the studio. In the garage, we could do whatever we wanted in that garage, like as far as noise, and we could really grow. We could really grow at that point. And so it'll be a fun show when it's going to be a while before we get that one on watch along though, because we're starting to get ahead of ourselves. What we got coming up, and let me talk about what's coming up. I forgot a lot of things, Dave. Shit. Okay,
I know. I was going to say, what do you got coming up with?
Yeah, let's tell you what's coming up.
What do you got coming up with Canary?
Well, first, let's start out with what's coming up on Wrestling Revolution Keaton, which is next Sunday. What we got coming up is he's really excited for this one. Amira Blair, is it? Yeah, Blair. One of his first female guests, so he's real excited for this. And this is going to be on April 13th, which is a week from Sunday. So this will be a good one. And if you guys can tune in for that one, it'll be a great interview. He's really, really excited for this one. So we'll see how that goes. And then our next Forward show in 1 week, isn't that basically a week from tomorrow? The Canary Kid himself, Ricky Henry, will be with me. And he always says, I'm the main host. He thinks he's the main host. No, he's not the main host. He's my co-host, the Canary Kid. And we will be having this guy here, Jack Garcia, the Chaos King, Full Tilt Wrestling, the same league that Mitch the Kid's a part of that we had on Forward a while back. And he's just getting started, Dave. He's just starting in the business now. He's fairly new still. And so we're going to see and learn what he's all about. Got a couple matches to watch of him and just learn all about this guy. Should be a great show. And that's going to be a week from tomorrow. And looking forward to that one. And then, so after we learn about Jack Garcia, in 2 weeks, Dave, 2 weeks.
Yep.
You and I will be back with Studio Taping 28. We're going back to Group W Cable. And you notice the shot here, Dave? What do we see there?
Crusher doing a drop kick.
Somebody asked a while back, when do you remember learning the drop kick where you were doing it? Like, when was the first match you remember honestly doing it and feeling like, I'm doing the drop kick now? It was this show and it was that match. And I was so excited when I pulled it off. As you can see, I did it twice. I do it again. I give Peterson 2 drop kicks in a row. And then from that point on is when I started doing the drop kick and really, of course, in these days, landing on that wood stage, Dave, is no picnic, but that's where I started learning the drop kick and eventually got pretty good with it. But this is the early days, and I don't know, these Group W Cable days, I know the fans love watching this stuff. It's rough. It's rough around the edges, and it's a lot of us kids just screwing around in some cases, having fun with it. But our hearts were in it big time. Like we were on cloud 9 with the show. Believe me when I tell you that. And then I just want to remind everybody, it's coming up June 1st in Northern Ireland. The NWF belt is on the line again. The Canary Kid to meet Ben Nelson to become, for the NWF's 40th anniversary championship match, to once again become the NWF world champ. And this will be a great match. Dave, who do you think's going to win?
Well, to be honest, I really don't know Ben. I've seen some of Canary's stuff. Don't know a whole lot about Ben, so I guess you got to say I'm rooting for the Canary Kid.
Is it because he's a heel? Or trying to be? Or whatever you want to say?
I know more about Canary than I do Ben.
Yeah. I like both of them. And we'll see what happens. I don't like Canary's big mouth. And he talks a lot of shit. And one of these days, and I'll tell you, not just one of these days, the week of June 1st, he's going to have to face Crusher Crossen face to face. Let's see how tough his talk is then. We'll see. But I'll tell you this much. If you notice, special guest referee Crusher Crossen. And if there's one thing I can guarantee you, I'm not going to take any shit in the match. These two better be on their best behavior. right?
You know, okay, Crusher, you know, I hate to word it this way, but, you know, as much as you love that belt, you're going to have to let some shit slide. So there is a new champion crowned. Because if the match ends in a disqualification, there is no new NWF champion.
Well, I don't know. I mean, would there be? Would they still get it on a DQ? I don't know. It's a.
Yeah, you know, wrestling history states a title cannot be won or lost on a disqualification
It
unless
can't
that
change
is
hands. It can't change hands on a DQ.
right. And right now, nobody holds it. So
We'll have to consult with Ace and Kid Kelsey to see what they say on our forward show on that one. That'd be an interesting that will be an interesting thing to be brought up. It's going to be fun, guys. And just so you know, that Jack Garcia show, that's coming up a week from Friday. But the next forward show after that, we have special guests, Kid Kelsey, Ace Andrew Carlson, and myself to meet these two guys all on NWF Forward in 3 weeks. So that'll be a good one. Looking forward to that. And we'll be the old champs to meet one of the two new champs, future champs. Yeah. So that should be pretty good. Be a good show. So that's what we got coming up on the horizon. We hope you guys liked the show. If you didn't catch it all when it was on, you can always, of course, 99% of our views come in replay, so you'll have to catch it in replay. But it was a good show, and Dave and I always enjoy being here. And hopefully Sky Sports and the crew will be back on our next one. Probably just busy with the playoffs and everything. So,
yep.
So we will be back then. I'll be back with you in Keaton's show a week from Sunday, and then in a week from tomorrow, Jack Garcia, Full Tilt Wrestling. Catch us on that one. And we'll catch the Canary's big mouth as he likes to run it and run wild with it. And we'll have all that next week. So,
alrighty. See you in 2 weeks.
2 weeks, everybody.